she may join us. Robert, are you on the phone yet? He had sent a text saying he hopes to join us at 1 o'clock, so we're gonna hope that he will be able to join us as well. So, benchmark number 8, and, you know, I just would say.
I call for a vote.
You know, there is really something magical that happens when you ask a group of people to work together to stay on a time frame. And you did just a really beautiful job on that this morning. So really thankful to everybody for doing that. So we will this afternoon review benchmarks number 8 and 9, and then we'll close out with some additional conversation about what we're hoping to do in December. And if we get finished early, so that folks can get on the road early, that's all fine and good as well. Just a little bit of extra motivation for those of you who are eager to call for votes, right? So,
Tammy started it.
That's right.
yeah, we have the vote call competition. So, benchmark number 8 has to do with the blending and grading of technology and employment. So I've asked Susan to kind of move up to the front of the room so she can help walk us through this conversation. And Director Miller, we hope will be able to come back in and join us for this conversation as well. This one is, again, you're seeing this one for the first time, so it's a little bit denser. And we just need a chance to kind of walk through it, so it will take
Lot
as
of
much
words.
time as we need. Pardon me?
A lot of words.
A lot of words on this page, exactly. So let me just read the first part of this benchmark aloud, just to kind of bring it into the room. Director, as usual, you offer any first framing comments about why this is important. I'm not going to read all because it includes the bullets this time, but the first part of the benchmark is amend the interagency agreement between UD and DODD to expand the use of technology within the Employment First Partnership, and then it has the bullets specifically will do in what.
Yeah, I think this one is one I think we're hoping to really learn more about. We did, or you guys did, the RFP. Thank you. Couldn't think of the words for the grants that you've so generously offered. And because employment is such a huge emphasis in our system and OOD's system, and how do we support our individuals who are out there working, and are there ways to do it a lot more efficiently and maybe a lot more responsive than always using a human body to do that? Can we use technology in the same way? So again, I think this is one that probably has a lot of potential, but we don't have any experience with, or very limited experience with how that could be helpful. So Susan?
I'm going to change chairs, give you the hot seat here. Susan,
Good afternoon. I also just wanted to let you all know that I am also on the phone for the Huff with DODD. I'm an Employment First Project Manager in Northeast Ohio. I'm calling in on behalf of CC Collins today, so let me know if there's anything that you need from me.
Yeah, so thanks, Britta. Appreciate it from up north. Are you guys getting snow or sleet or rain or nothing?
Yeah, it's been a combination of all of it.
Okay.
At
Yeah.
the moment, we're clear, but it's pretty nasty out this morning. It keeps coming in different variations.
So we appreciate you being here. We know that Sean and O'Callaghan stole Stacy at their conference. So we appreciate you pinch hitting. So thanks.
Absolutely.
Well, so would it be helpful for me to just review what the interagency agreement is and what we mean when we say Employment First Partnership?
Sure.
Would that be
Yes,
helpful
that
for
would
the
be
group?
helpful,
Okay. Okay, so it's probably been, I'm thinking about 6 years now, that we have enhanced our interagency agreement with DODD to where they give OOD funds, 2.2 million-ish in funds. We take that 2.2 million and we draw down federal funding. For every dollar that we have, we get $3.69 in federal funding.
A lot better than our waivers.
Wow, I was gonna say, that's a pretty good.
It's a nice
Yeah.
match rate.
Wow.
And so, that gives us a collective pool of funds that we use to deliver vocational rehabilitation services, targeting individuals with developmental disabilities who have traditionally been in segregated work settings. So to move them into community employment. And so as a part of that agreement and those funds, DODD funds then, it started out 25 of our caseloads. Now it's 30 of our caseloads that are really working with that group of individuals. They are out in the community, at the board, at providers, et cetera, that are delivering, at the sheltered workshop or whatever, getting people moved from there, or they could be in an enclave, et cetera, but moving them into competitive integrated employment. Also, it funds some personnel on our side, as well as with DODD that deliver technical assistance to the staff. Those staff have a lower caseload. They have a caseload of 60, which is low for us. And the purpose of that is to make sure that they have the time that they need to devote to this population that has a more intensive service delivery model. We are using largely what we call a place and train model, which means we're really moving people rapidly into job development. We're working with them to identify a job goal as quickly as possible. And then we're really working with them once they are on the job, providing what we call on-the-job supports. Sometimes people hear it as job coaching is another term for that. But we deliver those on-the-job supports as well to make sure that they can learn the job, they're appropriately supported on the job, and then eventually the baton gets passed to a long-term service provider that would be a DODD provider for that individual, so that they have supports to the extent that they need them ongoing. Our services are time limited, so we get them stable on the job and so on, and then pass the baton on to the long-term supported employment provider. Part of the agreement has included a dual service or dual provider agreement where if an entity is a DODD certified provider, we will give them a waiver of our CARB accreditation requirements to become a provider. And they can then provide services under the agreement without having to go through all those hoops because they've already established themselves as a certified provider in the DD system. And so that was to make it easier for us to build more capacity so that, because before the agreement, a lot of times what happens is the person gets settled on the job, and guess what? Oh, now I have to have a new provider. And that's not, I mean, we've talked about that even here. That's not usually helpful to the individual, and also business partners don't love that either. Like they are like, why do I have to have some new person coming into my business, right? So it provides continuity both with the relationship with the business, the employer, and the individual. So that is a big part of the agreement. And then the agreement also funds 5 work incentives consultants that work with the individuals that are being served to help them understand the impact of work on benefits. There's a lot of fear about that, concern and so forth, a lot of misinformation out there even on the topic, and it's a big fear for individuals and families. And so these certified work incentives consultants go out, and there's one for each region of the state, and they help work on that aspect of it too. So, like I said, it's been in place about 6 years. We do a really great job in terms of meeting the employment outcomes that we're looking to achieve each year. Our open caseload at the end of September was about 1,600 individuals. We have a little bit more capacity than that on these caseloads, but that's where it was at that snapshot. And we successfully closed 660 individuals last year out of that agreement. I should say that that is not the entirety of individuals with developmental disabilities that we serve at OOD. There is overflow, so to speak, to our general caseload carrying counselors. So that's just the numbers served under the actual interagency agreement. So, any questions about that? It's really gone very well. I think it's been really great for the departments to work together in this way.
How unusual is that, John?
I think we were one of the first states, there's maybe only 2 or 3 other states that actually use money from one agency to support, and then in return for paying for it, then we kind of get, I don't want to say control the caseloads, but it's our caseload, it's folks from our system, and we're doing it, so, yeah, no, it's very rare.
And we have a similar agreement with the Department of Education that serves transition youth that was put in place basically on the success of the partnership with DODD. And with Employment First, there's an Employment First task force that meets, and that includes DODD, our agency, education, mental health, job and family services, and Medicaid. Callie participates in that heavily as well. And, I think that has really fostered those relationships. And kind of to your question, we are regularly complimented for the interagency cooperation that we have in Ohio, at conferences, different things like that. Even things that we go to conferences together, and there will be somebody from education, NVR, at a DD function, and the other states are like, wow, I could never get education to come to our thing or voc rehab. So, we've been, I think the whole setup has really fostered that interagency collaboration. And quite honestly, a lot of times that's what gets outcomes, right? Is that partnership and relationship. So that's been an important part of the agreement. So, other questions about the interagency agreement?
Well, it sounds so simple. I mean, well, we'll just have an agreement with RSD and whatever, and it's just amazing. And nobody else in the country is hardly doing it, and it's just amazing, but it just sounds so simple. Wow.
So when we started talking about employment, and Stacy Collins and I had worked on kind of this benchmark and kind of brainstormed some of the ways that we could really replicate a lot of the discussion that we've had here around more of the residential supports, and how can that then be applied to the employment setting in a way that could achieve additional, the same results. Increased independence for that individual, more efficiency of services, more access to more providers, all of that sort of thing. Having said that, should we move into that, or maybe what we should also share before we get into the weeds of the benchmarks is that one of the things that we've mentioned is that we did a request for proposal for entities who could offer innovative strategies to use technology in vocational rehabilitation services. And so Kyle actually was part of the group that reviewed the RFP, as well as Stacy Collins from DD. and a number of OOD staff, and we're pleased to be able to say that we have awarded a contract.
Yes, you can tell that.
To a single entity, and that is Capabilities, which is a provider that serves individuals both in the DD system as well as the vocational rehabilitation system. And we're really excited about that proposal because it was almost like they were sitting in on these meetings, listening to the conversation, only they weren't, unless they were, I don't know. I never noticed them here. But anyways, their proposal is to deliver remote on-the-job support. So like I was saying, with once somebody's placed on a job, that support person who's making sure they can do the job appropriately, you know, helping develop the natural supports around them, all of those things, to try out doing those remotely. And also using other forms of technology. And it's kind of the same conversation from this morning, the difference between the remote supports and the assistive technology. Because there could be people that can benefit. We did a presentation last time, you probably remember, and they talked about, you know, maybe using a watch that could issue you prompts, or an iPad that could remind you the sequencing of tasks, or other types of things. So using assistive technology in the delivery of services, so I don't have to have some awkward person standing over my shoulder prompting me all day, but I could be using technology, which everybody has anymore, and it just seems like a much more natural way to do that. And also, you know, kind of, again, makes them more independent. So that's kind of what they will be doing. We haven't finalized the contract yet with them. They deliver services in 66 of the counties in Ohio. And so it's a pretty big footprint, which was one of the nice things about this particular proposal is for a pilot, we're getting a lot of bang for our buck because they do have such a large footprint. They will be working with individuals who are interested in this service delivery model, and they will provide training with them and the employer both about the use of this technology and how to use it to make sure that individual is supported.
And that's Justin's group, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are they based out of the?
Proud opera member.
Yes, he's very active.
On the board.
Yes,
Yeah.
yep.
Are they based out of a particular county?
St. Mary's.
Okay.
What county is that?
You're all, it's not all places.
Mercer's?
Oh,
Mercer.
Yeah.
David, you never met Justin? You got a meeting.
Yeah, okay.
Good guy.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
spoke at their conference a couple weeks ago. I will also tell you, there was a second proposal, I wish I could just say was, yeah, do both. There were several others.
Carolyn brings her checkbook.
Well, by the way,
That's where the money is.
I absolutely was bringing this up to toe, Carolyn, that I would love to put Tehan's in, Tehan Lu, who is does orientation and mobility as a provider for us and some other things, but he put together a very innovative approach that I was wanting to be all over. But the problem when you get into state government is some of it is about purchasing, so it doesn't mean we purchase it and it's ours. Do we purchase it and it's his? And so there were some things. Kyle, do you remember some? You know how that goes.
Yes.
But that might not be an issue for the DD Council, so. But it's extremely innovative in some of the things. I'm big on trying to do something that's different.
Yeah.
You can't keep doing the same things, thinking you're going to get different, same results or different results. So, but that might be something for everybody to think about. Because, and we obviously know capabilities is solid, so we know this will make a difference. DSW already does some remote supports with our, or not DSW. What's the one that's doing the remote coaching? Yeah, with yeah, well, not quite. Yeah. Yeah.
You're thinking of Wright State.
Wright State, I'm
Wright
sorry.
State was doing some more remote counseling
Yeah.
pilot.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're super excited about it, and it fits really nicely, with the work here, and like I said, it's perfect in terms of being able to try to replicate the remote supports, and, yeah, I think people are pretty excited about it, which is nice.
Yeah.
Anything you wanna add?
I think you covered it all. It was a really great, there was a lot of really good proposals out there, and there was a lot of stuff to be excited about because, you know, not only are we talking about it in here, but that means that other people are talking about it outside of here as well. So, you know, I really expect we'll see a lot of innovation going forward.
What is the timeframe for the pilot? 1 year, 2 year?
We haven't finalized the contract, but I'm guessing a year.
Now, is that a calendar year, a fiscal year?
Oh, you know what I'm talking
See,
about.
that's why I felt comfortable saying a year.
Yeah.
Any questions, or?
I think people will be eager to dive into the bullet points, and maybe even, Susan, before you dive in, this benchmark is different in that it does have bullet points and kind of who's gonna do what kind of format. So, I know you and Stacy, had some ideas about that, and we kind of even looked at it, drafted a number of different ways, but maybe if you could say, what do you think this format brings, kind of the logic behind these bullet points as part of the benchmark might be just a helpful additional background.
Right. And so if you enjoyed reading interagency agreements and you read ours, you would see that it's very similar to the language that we have in our interagency agreements about what we're gonna do at OOD, what DODD will do, and what we jointly do together. So that's a lot of what you will see here is really, because the main area here talks about just amending the agreement. So these bullets really reference what we would probably then be putting into the agreement and then doing as part of our partnership in the coming year. Does that kind of make sense?
If I could just pause you for a minute, just got a text, and I understand Robert is on the call, is on the phone for us now. Robert, are you with us?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Oh, thanks for joining us. We missed you this morning. Robert, just to bring you in here, I just want to make sure that you're tracking here. We are reviewing benchmark number 8, and we're looking at the handout that you would have received, the attachment you would have received, that at the top says 2019 benchmarks. So we are on page 8 of that multi-page document. Susan.
So, should we just go through the bullets?
I think we should
And
go through the
kind of
bullets.
offer an explanation. Okay, so the first one relates to what we just talked about, so we probably move past that one pretty quickly, that we would pilot, technology and employment, et cetera.
I wonder if we could ask Lori to kind of highlight the highlights here about, because, I think that's Robert, and I'll ask him if he can mute his phone. One of the things I know that we talked about in background for this benchmark was what's in current rules that makes this possible. So if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, we thought maybe we would have to look at our supported employment or individual employment supports rule and make changes to allow the service to be provided remotely. So when we were opening it to see where we needed to change it, we figured out we don't have to change it because the language that's highlighted already exists where job coaching includes supports provided to a person and his or her supervisor or coworkers, either in person or via technology. And it also encompasses training and assistive or other technology used by the individual while on the job. So that language already is permissive and is a billable component of the individual employment support service. The one thing we talked about perhaps adding to that is including that it's not just to train an assistive tech as noted above, but also to set it up for the person or maybe kind of input what their schedule would need to be or what their tasks would need to be and kind of prep that technology for their use throughout the day.
So I'm gonna go ahead and move on if nobody has any questions about that. The second part is, as I mentioned before, we have some pretty robust training that we're doing for providers. Under the agreement, we have regular training that we do. OOD does our own training, I think DODD does the same. And so what we talked about was working to incorporate technology into the training curriculum for case managers, providers, individuals, families, just so that we can start that as a communication plan with people. So that was number 2. Number 3 has to do with data collection. So Director Miller mentioned earlier about we do track our expenditures on technology. And so we could tell you under the Employment First Agreement how many of those people got rehabilitation technology as a service. Now what would be more difficult would be to say who just got an iPad that the job coach is using to deliver job coaching. That is not as clearly delineated in our coding structure. And we also wouldn't have a way right now to say this is a remote job coaching and this is not remote because we aren't doing it at the current time. So what we talked about is really trying to figure out what are the things that we want to track as it relates to this whole idea, and then making sure that we have the data so that we can measure how much this is being utilized in our progress. So we're a little bit, we're not at base 0 or ground 0 with this, but we're not well set up to really know these details about some of the use of technology. And then targets. So once we have methods of data collection and we know what we can track and how we're going to do it, start trying to kind of baseline and establish some targets for what we think that could look like and what kind of growth we would like to see.
And that's within the first year, is that?
And then the next one, kind of like Lori was talking about with DD's rules, we have rules that we have a fee schedule and we have service definitions and so on. And we're actually starting right now the process of reevaluating our fee schedule for the next iteration. And so as a part of that process, we would just be looking to make sure, and the pilot also will help us to identify any barriers to our normal course of business that might exist for a remote supported on-the-job support. So taking a look at that and making any adjustments that we may need to at OOD in terms of our administrative role.
Susan, hold on 1 minute. I think one thing to add that the council and others should understand is, at least within our service delivery, if we figure out ways to give incentives to the areas that are underserved, you tend to get more providers to try to stretch into those areas. So when we think about some of these other recommendations, whenever in our various worlds we are with fee schedules and so forth, at least from what we've seen, because we've been doing it continuously here for the last couple of years, because we use hard data for these things. Like with travel, when we offered an enhanced rate for travel for services that we couldn't get people to do, people were willing to say, okay, we'll go do that, but we had to put some conditions on that, otherwise they would just be driving all over the place, but where there was a deliverable to it. So I think that's a good thing to think about when we talk about remote technology. As we move forward, maybe we look at ways to enhance, if you use remote technology, there's actually some financial incentive to it.
And definitely not a disincentive.
Correct.
Because, like I know one of the things, we don't have anything in our system that's like an on-call or a monitoring kind waiting for a call from someone who's receiving remote supports, there's really no method for compensation of any kind for that, and no structure. So we would need to kind of figure out those kinds of things, and that would be a disincentive, because if I'm not, so right now, that's part of what this grant is gonna pay for, because they can bill us for time that they're actually delivering the service, but then they are gonna need to have a little call center and staff on board to do that. So that's what part of this grant is gonna cover for, because that's not covered right now.
Remember, we can't call it a grant.
I don't think they heard me call it.
Never heard the word.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you say something?
Okay, and then.
It's like Prince, the artist formerly known
Yeah.
as. It's not a grant.
Okay, DODD to expand training on evidence-based practices identified within the Employment First Transition Framework beyond transition age youth.
You would
Looking
need
around,
Stacy
hoping
here.
nobody asks
Yeah.
a question, this is one I might need some help with.
Phone a friend.
Yeah.
What you've done with transition age, in that you're looking to expand that beyond those ages into the adult components,
Correct.
right, that you've done? Okay, gotcha.
This is Britta, I can chime in a little bit on this one. So evidence-based practice are, instructional methods or strategies that are proven through research to be effective to teach skills, in multiple environments. So this was, pulled through, the National Secondary Transition Technical Assistance Center. And they took the research, and the identified sets of evidence-based practices through that, Technical Assistance Center, and kind of refocus them into, areas for, the use of transition youth through the transition framework. But absolutely can be used, to teach a variety of skills at any age, in a variety of settings, so in work sites, in community environments, classroom, social settings. So a lot of those, and that information can be found on the Employment First webpage, under the transition framework. So we have the tool already developed, and just, hope that we can get that information out, and expand our training to be beyond transition age youth as well, because a lot of those do include technology.
Great, thank you, Britta.
No problem.
And then the final one, Director Miller had alluded to this earlier, and it's kind of the same as the previous benchmark for the person-centered planning process, is to make sure that when we are doing our individualized plans for employment with individuals receiving services, that there is a strengthened conversation about technology. That's something that's always been there, but it probably could be more robust. It's probably something that sometimes, especially outside of services to the blind, to the deaf, and people with more physical impairments, maybe it's glossed over a little bit, and how can we strengthen that to make sure that for all populations, that we're really making sure that not only do people know that this is available, but they have a right to this type of service delivery model. So strengthening that is the last one.
What we're envisioning on that is that it would actually be a designated section on the IPE. So it would be, it's going to be discussed with every single individual. Where does this fit with you? Because as we all know, especially with employment, you can't even get a job as, working in logistics or anything without having some knowledge of technology. Whether it's orders coming in or cash register work or, working as pharmacy techs, whatever. You gotta have some technology skills that are part of it. So we're gonna have those conversations right from the get-go, and they will continue every step of the way. Because anytime we change, anybody wants to change, there has to be a council that signs off on that change in the plan, so that will be a time to go over
is more maybe detailed or more bullets than I think some of the other items, but.
As council members, we would ask you to commit these to memory, so.
Yes, sure.
We need a vote?
Yes.
All right, I call for a vote.
Good point, Chris.
Jamie likes that.
Beat me to it.
Any opposed? We'll ask that first. All in agreement here. Consensus here in the room. I want to check in with Kathy and Robert. Kathy, are you with us?
I am.
Are you in agreement with?
Yeah, I believe that we really need to, as we're looking to expand the field, blending and braiding is gonna be important to access all services.
Thank you.
So yes, I agree.
Thanks, Kathy. Robert, are you with us?
Yeah.
I know as, I'm sorry, say again?
I also agree that the best way to, if this done is way, just to collaborate.
Thanks, Robert, and I know you shared with council in previous meetings your personal use of technology in your own employment, so we thank you again for that. Wonderful.
Sure.
Thank you both for your leadership, and Britta, thank you as well too for formulating this benchmark for us. We will consider this one signed, sealed, and delivered. Last but not least, benchmark number 9 calls for updating Ohio's transition vision work plan to include a core principle on technology and to address technology under each of the existing core principles. So we'll turn it over to our O'Callaghan people for some more framing about that, and we'll remind you that you do have this in your packet, which will be helpful in understanding this benchmark. So, Sean, could you?
Sure. You know, I mean, we were looking at it, first, what's working? And the Employment First Task Force, and that work is really, I think, setting a standard of what we need to look like. I was talking to our keynote speaker, Bill East from NASD, Education NASD, not the DD NASD, but he was talking about, you know, at the Fed level, this is really what they're talking about. And I think, we were talking, he said, what's going on in Ohio and what's working? I said, well, this is what's working. That's what we're talking about. That's what we need to do. It's really what has to happen for certain reasons. So, in that light of what's working, why not blend it, why not put it within the transition framework, right? And making it, these discussions are happening earlier, thankfully for individuals, in schools, thinking ahead, you know, and making it at each level and within all the core principles, I think is vital, because as we were talking about, it's touching their lives in employment, but in housing, right, in their education, and then also in their social lives. But if we can start there and really have a visionary way of thinking, I think is going to be very impactful long term. We know it doesn't have the same kind of data that others might with a benchmark that we can check off, but I think the future will hold that those discussions are happening. We're going to see the use at a much higher level. Teresa?
I mean, Britta talked a little bit, I think, just to help everybody understand how this document came to be. Susan listed all the agencies that sit around the table for Employment First, the task force, and they had some assistance from federal or national agencies to really focus and hone in on transition. So collectively, they came up with this transition vision work plan. So all the agencies on here said, yes, this is what we're gonna do, and we're gonna do it together in this way. And so as Sean said, we were kind of thinking what data already exists. Yes, we could say something about ODE has to do X, Y, and Z, but One, we weren't sure that you really wanted to boss ODE around.
Doesn't mean
And-
they do it even,
Yeah.
they can tell, right?
And there's that, but we thought this
For the-
is a venue that already exists, has been really successful, that they have a process in place for how they develop these and look at them. So as Sean said, it is something that's worked, something that there's been a lot of alignment around, and so we found that being easy, or the path of least resistance and most effectiveness might be just to ask them to incorporate technology into that plan.
I wonder if you might review, in this case, some ideas about what a core principle could look like, and some of the, in this recommended strategy, you're talking about amending within each of these existing core principles. Could you just walk us through, just generally, so we understand, so that you understand as council members, whether or not you're willing, ready to vote on this benchmark?
So as you're looking at the document, the core principles are the first 5 that are on there. It says core principles for transition in Ohio. And those are, in essence, statements of philosophy, if you will. Kind of this we believe together. So the one that is proposed on your draft benchmarks on page 9, under recommended strategies, the Amend Ohio Employment First, a core principle related to technology might be ensuring access to technology will create new markets and employment opportunities. And that is nobody's genius, but the Coleman Institute, actually. That's straight from the, they don't call it the Bill of Rights. They came up with this document. Is it called the Bill of Rights?
It might be.
Okay.
It might be.
Around.
It's close.
Yes.
Close enough, though.
Yes, that's all around technology and access to technology, and that everybody with a disability should have access. And this is one of their guiding principles. So again, not trying to reinvent the wheel. There are some super smart people that have already come together and come up with
So
a
you would
number of these
add that
things.
as number 6?
Yes.
Okay.
And then making sure, as we looked at some of these other ones, it seemed that it would also make sense to incorporate technology or think about technology under each of those as well, because some of them do go as far back. The core principle number 2, transition planning for youth, requires multi-agency collaboration. I mean, ODJFS has a K-12 backpack. We've talked about having the conversation early, having the conversation often. If in a K-12 backpack, there's information about technology, you're starting to get kids really young. And so part of this discussion with the task force around this transition vision work plan is would ODJFS incorporate technology, for example, into the K-12 backpack. So, and we could have gone on and on, but again, thought that's really discussion for the group working on the work plan. But is that- It is similar, I guess, in feel to yours, Susan, or in terms of not hard numbers as much as a plan and a process.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but certainly measurable in that you could say, yes, we amended it to reflect technology, right?
Yeah.
And again, leaves the specific content to the work group who has owned and invested and knows the details of the work.
And is that a problem that 3 of the parties that are responsible agencies on here aren't represented here? Are you kind of inserting yourself
They would,
into-
if it were amended, they would be a part of the amendment.
Yes. And
Now,
it's
they may not
something they're
agree to-
already responsible
Yeah.
for doing.
Okay.
ODE's gotta do, they're doing this stuff anyway, but it would be about the collaborative part, right?
We're gonna make it easy for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
We got a deal for you.
Yeah.
All right.
I think what's key is, and I don't want to wordsmith it too much, but it's just like anything else. It's if you use what you put together, which is why, at least with OD, we always say, whenever we say we're going to do do something, you have to be able to tie it back to this, and you have to cite it. So if you're gonna put out a grant, or if you're gonna say, let's do an initiative on this, you have to be able to tie it to one of these 5, and then detail it under one of these sub-bullet groups. So what are you doing to do this? You gotta be able to explain it in there, otherwise you don't do it. It's gotta be something within those 5. So I think that's important for, we can amend anything, but if nobody uses it and understands how to use it, it's like, oh yeah, that's great, we're all for it. And then, but if you don't say, but whatever you put together, when you say you're going to expand technology, you're gonna select a vendor, in the RFP, you should have these 5 principles in there, so they know they're being graded on it, just as an example.
I think they call it the declaration, not the bill of rights, just FYI.
Yeah.
You can see maybe why I got them confused.
Separate-
No, I didn't Google it. I'm famous for those of you who
If you do
don't.
not know your PIN, please enter pound or hash.
Aw.
You know what, there must be a timer on that after so long, it kicks off.
Right, at our crucial vote time.
We'll get
It was very founding fathers theme.
Yeah.
That's right, I knew it was.
Declaration,
Yeah.
Constitution,
Not the
something.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Right, I tried to run through it.
If you are the host, press star now. Otherwise, please wait, and you will be joined into the conference.
Any other questions or comments for Teresa or Sean?
Please announce yourself.
We appreciate you drafting this because it does give us an opportunity within the scope of the benchmarks to address youth, and particularly transition age youth. And I know that's been a recurring theme in your concerns and comments. You're back with us, Robert?
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry we lost you. Kathy, are you still with us? Oh, Kathy, are you back?
Yes, I'm back.
Thank you. Appreciate your patience. We think we got timed out, so thank you for doing that.
that's okay.
Yeah. Do either of you have any comments or questions about benchmark number 8 that we've just reviewed together? There are no edits from the room, so we're considering this up for vote. And let me ask council.
This is 9.
9.
I'm sorry, number 9. Just seeing if you're paying attention. We're not
We don't wanna
going
go
back.
back. We're not going back.
It's been voted on.
Yeah.
Let the record show that Jamie called. for
Right.
it.
That's right, that's right. We have this on tape. Let me do a check-in in the room first. Any opposition, any opposed to number 9?
I have a question.
Sure.
I am curious, about when VFDI and CVR, VOCD got together and decided to come up with a partnership. Did they talk to people that, serve to give their input on how they can improve, supporting the people they serve? As far as technology was concerned.
Yeah, how were people with disabilities engaged in the partnership process?
Yeah.
Yeah. Susan Pugh's gonna take that one for us, Robert.
So we do, on a quarterly basis, we do what we call participant focus groups out in the field, 1 per area of the state, so 5 each quarter, and we kind of move them around to different locations within that area. And we invite people receiving services, families, partners, et cetera, to come to
Providers.
those meetings to provide input. And I will tell you, actually, we had an OOD council meeting just yesterday, and we were reviewing with them the most recent round of them, where we were talking actually with job seekers. And technology did come up several times in those, in the feedback. So we do know that that's something that's important to the people that are receiving services. Does that answer your question?
Okay. Yeah.
So, can we get a check-in, with you, Robert, about draft benchmark number 9? Are you in agreement with that?
Yeah.
Thank you. And Kathy?
Yes.
Thank you. Everybody in the room is given a thumbs up and head nod, so I think we have consensus then on our final benchmark number 9. That concludes our benchmark review. High five to you. And to you, Kathy and Robert, thank you. Thank you, Robert, for joining us. I know it's been a difficult day for you. And Kathy, you hung in all day.